Alrighty, good morning. It is September 24th. It's Friday. I'm up here at Applegate Reservoir, and actually pleasingly it's not quite as low as I had anticipated. You can see the water's definitely down as it should be for this time of year, but as low as it was at Lost Creek, I thought that this would be bottomed out to really low percentage. This morning I'm going to be fishing this little red and chartreuse jig, curly tail, with about an inch of nightcrawler on it, and this is the 1/16 head instead of the 1/32. We're going to be working our way out this way toward the dam and all that steep bank right there, and see if we can pick up both some smallmouth and some trout. The other jig I'm fishing is that motor oil jig, and got actually probably a long piece of nightcrawler, but it doesn't hurt because the jig head's light. It allows me to cast a little bit further. Oh, nicer fish, I think. Got a decent bite to it. Oh yeah, it's a trout. Not a half bad one. And he's already been hooked by somebody else. So I don't know if you can see, but there are absolutely hundreds of little bass down here of all various sizes. This is going to make, I see largemouth and smallmouth. This is going to make fishing really difficult here for anything of substance. So I think I'm going to try to keep the jigs deeper and see what we can find other than these little itty bitties. There we go. It is a small one, but something. A little smallmouth. I don't know how long I've had whatever this is on here, but my gosh, what a weak biter. Probably some itty bitty trout or something. Yep, called it. Oh, it's a little silver salmon. There's a lot of confusion out there about these. People think that these are kokanee. They're not. Notice the spots all the way down on the fins and across the back. Okay. I'll show you here in a minute. That is a silver salmon. It's just extras that they put in the lake and they grow up. Okay, so here on the card you can see the kokanee in the lower left. No spots on the back or the tail, so that fish was clearly not a kokanee. And the coho up towards the top, spots on the upper lobe or forked tail, and it had the white gum and the black mouth as well. But basically that's what you were dealing with, and people constantly mistake those silver salmon as kokanee, and they're not. Coho salmon, look at the top there. Dark spots on the back, spots on the upper lobe of the tail only, whitish gums, black mouth, and sockeye or kokanee. No distinct spots on the back or tail. So anyhow, hope that helps. A lot of people are confused on these and just want to set the record straight. So basically what I do is I use this small, it's just little, you can buy these knives anywhere, I think Walmart or whatever. It's a little Rapala knife. They come pretty darn sharp straight out of the packaging, but I keep mine extremely sharp because of the method that I use, and I don't want to deal with a dull knife and the problems that come with that. So here's the fish. Obviously it needs to be bent a little bit. I do have a little measuring on here, so basically it's about a 16 right there, 16-inch fish. That's nice. It's a pretty trout, real bright. I did catch 4 of these at Applegate yesterday. I ended up letting go. I had 3 other ones. I'm sorry, two on the stringer. This one died on the stringer. I let the other one on the stringer go, and I let 2 other ones go of the big fish, but they were all identical, this size, and really, really good fighters. You'll also notice, look at this tail, really complete. Wouldn't be surprised if this is possibly a hatchery steelhead that they brought over the dam and dropped into the lake. They definitely had a good quality fight on them. So basically what I do is I start just on the opposite side, go down to the backbone, turn the knife 90 degrees, and just keep a sawing motion going. As I get down the body, I'm still just following the backbone. And there's one fillet. I'm taking that off screen, but it's going into a plastic bag that's going to be frozen, and then later on put in my trash. Go to the other side, do the same thing. The reason I like using a board like this is I can really, especially when I go to take the skin off, I can lay the board flat, or the knife flat, and get it down underneath the edge of the board. So I only went part way down here because you start running into these pelvic bones. So I turn it around, come at it from the other side, just to finish it out. And again, having a sharp knife makes a big difference. Right there. I'm just going to go right around those pelvic bones. Don't lose too much there. There goes the carcass. A lot of times I'll save the carcasses for crab bait. So basically I want to rinse off my board and my fillets, all that blood. I don't want it on my fillets. I don't like blood on the fillets. Okay, so now in terms of how to get the ribs clear of this fillet, basically what I do is I come back right behind the ribs here and start a cut. Again, having a sharp knife makes a big difference. Sorry about that, I'm bumping the camera. And I'm looking for the knife through the rib bones. So right there, you can see the knife behind the rib bones. And got some grass from my lawn, that's not good. A lot of times I'll just take off this last little piece of skin. Again, there's all your rib bones completely removed, and we'll go to take the fillet off the skin in a moment. Do the rib bones on the other side here. Kind of like to get it started behind them with the tip of the knife and then come back. if it's slippery on the table like this, another thing you can do is you can bring in a dry cutting board, and basically what happens is the wet fillet sticks to the dry cutting board, and it makes it easier. See how it's not pushing away from my knife anymore, and it gets difficult to hold it when it does. Again, right behind the rib bones. If you miss one, you can come back and get behind it. It's not a big deal. Don't like to waste any of that nice belly meat because a lot of times it has a good fat content in it. There we go. Now I'll show you how we take the fillet off the skin. So you do want to stretch it out a little, like that. Here's where getting the knife down below the edge of the board makes a big difference. So I like to have it somewhat close to the edge of the board. Slip in behind it, a little bit of a sawing motion, and look at I'm pulling on the fillet, or I'm sorry, pulling on the skin. So I'm sawing and constantly kind of rolling my fingers up behind the fillet. Just constantly rolling. There we go. Look at that. Nice kind of coral colored flesh. That's one. What I do is I generally put them in a separate thing, especially if I'm doing a lot of fillets. For the purpose of this demo, I'm just doing the two for the moment. I have one other small fish I need to do. Again, same thing on the fillet. Just a sawing motion, and I'm crawling up behind it with my fingers and constantly keeping it stretched. Constantly keeping it stretched, the knife flat. Okay, and I messed a little tiny bit of meat there, but not bad. Now we got two really nice fillets. Get the skin gone. And then we'll go inside and we'll take the pin bones out. Okay, so got our fillet here. Basically what I do is I just put it on a paper towel, kind of gently pat it dry. In most cases, when I'm preparing fish like this, unless I'm going to eat it immediately or the next day, I vacuum pack my fish, and I'll include a link to really inexpensive vacuum pack bags that a lot of people are reluctant to get into vacuum packing just because of the cost of the bags, but these are super inexpensive and most people don't know about them. You don't need to go to Food Saver and that sort of thing. Anyhow, basically the pin bones run all along here, and if you run your finger back towards the back of the fish, you'll feel them popping up. You'll even see a few of them here that you can visibly see sticking above the meat. The other thing to remember is that there's a few pin bones actually that you've cut through the side. You can see them sticking out here. Right there's one, and there's another right here. So I start with those on the side. Basically just get a hold with a pair of tweezers, and there we go. You can see that small one. What I'll usually do, instead of taking them out just one at a time, I'll just take them and stack them in my fingers. If you miss one, don't sweat it. You're going to be going back over it again. And you'll see me just rubbing my finger over this every time, because a lot of times I can't actually see the bones as much as I can just feel it, and I know where to start to pull it out. And of course, this is a good example of my not finding it. There it is. These are going to come out a little bit easier now that I've got a good view on them. And you notice I'm holding the flesh down with my fingers. Occasionally it pulls a little piece of meat like that, but don't sweat it. If you lose track of where you are, just run your finger back, another one will pop up. If you accidentally pull off the end of a pin bone, just push down on the flesh, you'll find it, the remaining part, and be able to take it out. And And you know they're going to be about equally spaced apart, so once you start the process, you're able to just pull them one after another. I can see these sticking out really well. There's another. And basically I'll show you how far back in the fillet you should expect to find them. When you get to the end, basically they get smaller obviously, but they're still present. They're just a little bit harder to find and grab a hold on to. Typically that's about it. I'm going back over this, make sure I didn't miss anything on the other part of the body. Very nice. There's all the pin bones that came out of this one, and we'll just set them aside on this paper towel, and we'll go to the second fillet. This one is completely good to go. That is a perfect fillet of trout. You can smoke that, you can pan fry it, you can do a number of different treatments to it. Go another one here. I guess first I want to roll this one over and just again pat it dry. You notice a lot of blood comes out right along the midline, so I'll tap that with my fingers, grab that little bit of blood. It's not a lot, but it does. Again, you want the fillet to look and taste as best as you possibly can. Same thing, we're going to start up towards the front here. I can see a couple sticking out here, easy. Didn't get it that first try, got it on the second. See if I missed any other ones over there, nope. Then I start just going down the line. Anybody who fishes for steelhead or salmon obviously is familiar with this. I'm doing a step that a lot of trout fishermen don't bother doing, and they end up with bony fillets, and nobody likes that. So anyhow, I'm just going to be doing the same thing on this fillet, and since you don't need to sit here and watch this for me doing it again twice, we got the basic idea down, and the next thing I'm going to do hopefully is show you guys cooking. So here's the two bag sizes that I generally order when I order them. This one is 12 by 8 and the other is 6 by 12. This handles two fillets like these pretty easily, unless they are a touch longer. If they're longer, I put them in this bag and I give them a little crossways to get a little more room to do the seal on the top. The other thing that's important to remember is if you take these fillets and you put them on a sheet of wax paper and put the wax paper down on a cutting board, put the whole cutting board in the freezer, freeze the fillets solid, peel off the wax paper, and you'll have two nice hard fillets to put into the bag before you seal them. It's so much easier than trying to take a wet fillet and wiggle it down into the bag. Anyhow, just good for long-term storage. You'll easily get 3 or 4 months in nice bags like this, vacuum sealed. You'll get 3 or 4 months and those fish will come out tasting delicious. Obviously, the ideal situation is to eat it fresh with not being frozen at all. And you surely don't want to let it go, 8, 9 months, a year. It's going to lose quality for sure. But if you're going to eat it short, go ahead and just eat it fresh. If you're going to store it, vacuum pack is the best. All right. So the recipe that I'm going to use on the trout fillets is a lemon piccata sauce. Just to real quickly run over the ingredients that I'm going to be using in this, and that you'll see is we have a little bit of flour here. In this particular case, it's gluten-free flour, but obviously whole wheat or regular wheat flour is fine if you're not gluten intolerant. We have a little bit of capers here, a little bit of pine nuts, a little bit of wine, a little bit of fresh parsley. I use paprika, kosher salt, and black pepper on the fillets. In this particular case, I'm using lemon juice just out of the bottle because I have a lemon tree and it's got Meyer lemons. They're much better than lemon juice out of the bottle, but I don't have any fresh ones right now. This is chicken broth. This is diced shallots that I've finely diced. A little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and then we're going to serve it over just this quinoa and brown rice with garlic. I can make this sort of stuff, but this particular case, the stuff is good and it's convenient, and it makes perfectly 2 servings, which is all I'm looking for today. So anyhow, I'll get to it here. So at this point, I'm just going to show you real quickly the salting and the pepper and that sort of thing. So a little bit of kosher salt on each side of these fish, and I'll just do each side one at a time. A little bit of black pepper. This is freshly ground. To me, it's ideal, but if you only have regular pepper, that's just fine. It's not a big deal. And then flip these over. Oh, I'm sorry. Did paprika too. The paprika to me is just a extra touch. It's nice. Flip these over. Go back to the kosher salt. Touch of the paprika. And a little bit of black pepper. Okay, and then go ahead and flour these. Basically, all you just want to do is make sure that they get a nice dusting of flour on both sides. There we go. There's one. Get the other dusted up here. Well dusted, and then we'll get those cooked off in just a few minutes. Okay, so I've added a little bit of olive oil, a couple tablespoons of olive oil to this pan. They've been heating up for a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and add the fillets down into this pan and get them frying here. Nice. Beautiful fillets. We'll do those for a couple minutes each on each side, and I just get them flipped over. If anything, the one thing I really don't like to do is overcook these fillets. It just makes them dry, and having them at this quickly flipped over is going to be just perfect. And you'll see they'll start to get cooked around the edges already, and the thickest part is what we want to just get cooked through. That's all. Get these flipped over nicely. Beautiful look to them. Gorgeous. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just divide this quinoa and brown rice between the 2 plates. Just make a bed of it on each side, kind of long, like that. Like I said, it was very convenient. little fillet onto each side. Nice. There we go. Now we're going to come back to the pan and we're going to finish out our sauce down here. So basically what I've got is the shallots. I'm going to probably add 3/4 of what I had chopped up. That's in the olive oil. So we're going to just give it a little more heat. Let that just cook off a little bit. Let those shallots slightly brown. Some piccata recipes call for garlic. I'm good with garlic, shallots, or onions. All three of them work fine for me, but in this particular case, shallots sounds really good, and that's what I'm going with. So now that that's got just a little bit of cooked through, we're going to follow through with the chicken broth. This chicken broth is, I made it up earlier, it's just low sodium chicken broth, and let that warm up a little bit. As soon as it warms up, I'm going to add a hint of both lemon juice and wine, and we're going to reduce all of that down. The flour that remains in the pan helps this to thicken up a little bit, more so with wheat flour than with rice-based flours or the gluten-free flours, but nevertheless still works. And you can see I'm not going with anything exact here as far as amounts. So I'm just going to put about a tablespoon of wine. And similar for the lemon juice, just to hit it with maybe a tablespoon or so. Swirl it around and reduce this down a little bit. Right towards the end, I'll add the capers and a little bit of the parsley, and then we'll dish it up over the fish and the rice. That smells really good. And you can see right now it's really, really liquid, but we want it to be just slightly thicker than this, so I'm going to let it come down a little bit. Also, if you did this recipe and you're not afraid of the fat, I'm trying to keep this on the healthy side, but if you wanted to make it really, really rich, you can reduce this down pretty far, take it off the heat, and put a few, 3 or 4 or 5 tablespoons of really, really cold butter that's been cubed down in here. Just swirl it and let it melt, but don't let it separate out, and that'll make a super rich sauce. That is not what I'm shooting for here. I'm just shooting for a healthier version of piccata sauce. So that's what we're going to get here. It's already reduced pretty well. We'll add the capers. Both of us love a good number of capers in our meal. And I'm sure they're gonna, yeah, you can see they cooled down the pan a little bit, but they'll heat up pretty quick. We'll let a little more liquid come off of this, then we'll add the parsley right at the very end and just pour it over the fish. Okay, I'm shutting off this sauce and we're gonna switch this around and pour it over the fish. Here we are. Just kind of spread that around, let the juice flow over the edges. Oh yeah, this is going to be excellent. know I've got the pan kind of blocking the camera view, but you can see what it looks like. Looks good. And basically I'm going to finish this with that parsley. So I just chopped up a little bit of the parsley, just a sprinkling of it on each of these. I'm not a huge parsley fan, but I do like the flavor on the piccata. Then the last thing I did was I did up some fresh Parmesan cheese. So we just do a touch of Parmesan cheese over the top of the piccata sauce. Yeah, that's going to be excellent. Good deal. Bon appetit. So one thing I forgot was the pine nuts, and I did add them. Fortunately, I added them before we started eating. It's really always discouraging to sit down, start eating, and go, oh shoot, I forgot, whatever. So anyhow, now it looks even better.